So one of the things that I love about your channel too is you have this process of perhaps taking somebody else's TikTok where they're playing a piano or an instrument or whatever, and then you'll come in with the duet system in TikTok and write lyrics to the music. What do you love about that concept, and how free does that allow you to be as an artist?
Oh man, it's one of my favorite parts of TikTok. So I do love doing duets, especially when it's a duet where I get to write lyrics because that's my strength. I'm a good lyricist, and I
Mm.
always have been. Um, so anytime you can take a musician who's better than me at an instrument, and they can play a melody, and I can put my words to it, I'm gonna try to do it. And it's incredibly freeing because I don't have to worry about playing the instrument. I can just concentrate on singing and writing the words. And, you know, a lot of times it gives me the opportunity to maybe write a serious song, or in some cases, I've written some pretty goofy songs
Yes.
um, to people's open verse. One of my first viral videos was Ditch Back Off My Pizza, which was a completely goofy duet that I did in the very early days of my TikToks. So it's tremendously freeing. It allows me a lot of different opportunities to explore lyrics. I use them a lot of times as writing exercises to just flex my rhyming skills and my rhythm skills, and to try and come up with something interesting. But sometimes they turn into full fledged songs like it did with Soda Pop Potato Chips.
Right. And so that's why I wanted to kind of talk about this, because what you do reminds me of like rap freestyle. That's what it reminds me of, is like watching you take somebody's music and then essentially just make up a song on the spot. And I love that sometimes it's a serious song, sometimes maybe not. That's what makes Ross Ross, and that's what I love about it. That's why I wanted to ask you about the duet system and how that like. And I know that some of those songs that you freestyle, so to speak, do end up fully fledged songs, um,
Yes.
which is pretty cool too. So how does that go? How do you go about that? Do you have to work with the person that you're duetting and
Yeah.
um,
Uh, so for instance, Soda Pop Potato Chips, that was one that after the initial reaction, because that one went viral. I knew that I wanted to make that into a larger song. And so, but to do that in that situation, you have to track down the person that did it, which can be a challenge sometimes. And you basically have to ask them permission to go ahead and add to it. And then you have to, make sure that, and this is just me thinking as a lawyer, that you have to make sure you give them credit, and if you put that stuff on Spotify like I did with that song, you have to make sure that they get a split of whatever comes in off that song.
right?
So it can be logistically a problem, and it, it really became the problem with that song because it took me a while to kind of nail down the other artist. His name's Kalon DiHulio. He's really good. It took me a while to track him down and to talk to him. And in the meantime, I had, thousands of people saying, when are you going to release this? When are you going to release this? When are you going to, and you can't until you get that permission. So that's logistically, it can be a problem. But it also can be challenging because sometimes, they're playing in a key that doesn't maybe work for ukulele or something like that. So you have to figure out, how can I do this song? Can I transpose it? Can I put it in a different key and make it still work? And so it can be a challenge. It can definitely be a challenge.
Yeah, and I know that you've done a few more collabs with the same artist from Soda Pop Potato Chips, right?
Oh
Like you've
yeah,
done other duets with him that
a
I've
whole bunch.
seen.
Hmm.
Yeah. So like once you find somebody you kind of jive with, just keep at it, keep banging that
Yes,
drum. So
I've got about three or four people on TikTok that I check pretty consistently to see if they've got anything new, and I'll try to add something to that.
So found you through, and you may not remember this because it's been over a year probably, but there was an older gentleman that plays the piano, and he did a version. He played Edelweiss, and I don't know if you did Edelweiss or if it was a Beatles song that he played or something. But that's how I found you, because I did a duet with his Edelweiss version, and then I found you through the same guy who you did a duet with him as well. I don't know if you
Was
know
that?
who I'm.
I think that was Sheridan, right? Was he English?
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yep. But
Yep.
that's how I found you. But let's say people are just hearing about Ross Gipson for the first time right here during this interview. How would you describe your music to somebody who doesn't know you?
Uh, it's definitely in the singer songwriter, I think, genre. The singer songwriter is kind of a catch-all genre that can mean
Really
a lot of.
is. Yeah.
It's folk, heavily folk influenced, with some pop and some blues elements, and maybe a dash of country.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk about Elven Folk Songs.
Yes.
Um, I had never heard of an Elven folk song until until I started following you, but I absolutely love what you do with these songs. Tell us what an Elven folk song is.
Well, okay. So this has to do with a book that I'm working on. I'm co-writing a book with my oldest sister. Um, the book is about, it's a fantasy kind of sci-fi novel that we're working on, and it's about a society of elves that live in this kingdom, and they derive their music or their magic from music. They can sing, they can play instruments. All of them can. No matter, you could be a fisherman that you can still sing. I mean, it's just innate in them to be able to do music, and all of their laws, their customs, their culture, their history is built on different poems, different songs, different uh, pieces of art, different stories. And so what I've been doing is we've been sort of working on the nuts and bolts of this story and how we're going to lay it out. Is I kind of taken a page from J.R.R. Tolkien, and I've written songs that I want to be part of the folklore of this world. These are actual songs that will be in the book, that will be referenced
Wow.
and stuff. And so these elven folk songs are all part of this big story that I'm writing. So anything that I say, this is an elven folk song, or that it's part of that story and part of that world. It's me, the songwriter, writing them, but it's attributed to different writers and different poets and songwriters within the framework of that story. And
Amazing.
it's been in this undertaking, but it's been fun.
So ironic enough, my wife is writing a fantasy novel. She has been for years and years, and you are a major part of her playlist when she is writing.
Oh, really?
So she
Cool.
she she loves your vibe, and she always says, "Yeah, Ross gets me in the mood to write." So
Well, that's one of the things I wanted to do with these elves was I didn't want them to be like your typical Tolkien elves that are like, frail and thin, and I wanted these to be more like, think of people from Appalachia, like coal miners and people that live in the hills and stuff like that. Hardy people with that kind of music and that kind of vibe. That's the vibe I wanted to go for with the elves. So that's why the music has been heavily sort of folky, heavily bluegrassy, heavily, you know,
mm-hmm. That's so
all of
hard to
that.
do too when you're creating a universe from scratch, right? Because like
Right.
you have to create a new language and new names and new locales and maybe new music. Like I know watching my wife try to create language within her book,
Hard.
where yeah, like she's trying to create a language for a group of people that don't actually exist IRL, you know.
Yeah.
So she's like, no, I have to create this language, and then I have to translate it as well, so people can know what the characters are saying. But like, man, how difficult is that? Just trying to create all that from scratch.
It can be extremely difficult, but my sister and I, we've got this synergy going on between the two of us, and like I'll call her up and I'll say, "Hey, I had this idea today about the story," and when I talk about it with her, we'll not only flesh out that idea, but we'll come up with like 17 other ideas that we want to do, and so it's just one of those things where we we play very well off each other, and there's a good creative chemistry, which I've never done in the context of writing a book before. Because I used to write stories, but like I've never collaborated with anyone on a story, and
Mm.
it's tremendously fun.
I can
So, but
imagine.
it can
And I,
be difficult when you're actually trying to do it and write it down on the page. That's the hard part.